This is just a few questions. Just a few questions. I have Alderman Matt Martin on the phone, the 47th Ward Alderman of the city of Chicago. Alderman Martin, you there?
I am. Thank you so much for having me on, Mark.
Alderman Martin, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. We met, I think, in October or something of last year on Ben Jaworski's show, which is really cool. Because Ben said, "You want to be on the show?" I said, "Man, I don't know if I could make it, Ben. I don't know, man." He said, "Matt Martin coming." I said, "Cool, I'll be there." So, and it was just like that. You were very cool. So, Matt Martin, you are the Alderman of the 47th Ward, and I'm on the far south side, in the 21st Ward. You're on the north side. So, how was life on the north side in the 47th Ward?
I think we're doing okay. We have our fair share of problems. In some ways, they might not be as significant as in other parts of the city in terms of gun crime in particular. But look, we're losing our stock of affordable housing. Our schools are high quality, but increasingly parents have to dip into their pocketbooks just to keep enough teachers in the schools, which is a problem. And we know with regard to rising property taxes that it's pricing too many folks out of their home. And so with the financial crisis that our city is in, we need to make sure that we're taking bold, innovative steps to ensure that places like the 47th Ward are open to everybody, no matter their background.
Yeah, you have a lot different problems, but you do have a public safety problem. I was reading on your Wikipedia page. When they say safety, I don't think Southside public safety. What kind of public safety problems you have in the 47th Ward?
So we don't have the sorts of violent crime that you see in other parts of the city, at least to the same levels. But, we do have the occasional shooting, which folks take seriously. We actually had an officer-involved shooting this past weekend, early in the morning on Sunday. We do have a fair amount of property-related crimes, so package thefts, breaking into cars, garages, that sort of thing. And so while, of course, those might not get the sort of headlines that you see in terms of public safety issues in the Tribune and the Sun-Times, we take them very seriously. We partner with the 19th and 20th police districts to make sure we're providing information in a thoughtful way, but also in a constructive way. So one of the things that my office did when we got into office was we do these pop-up CAPS meetings about every month, every other month. We go to a different part of the ward. In advance, we say, what are some issues that are really top of mind from you that you're concerned about? Maybe it's some teenagers who are doing things they shouldn't be doing late at night in a park, or maybe it is a string of property thefts in folks' cars or their homes. And so we bring, say, a CAP sergeant, a few beat cops. It's really tight. It's 30 to 60 minutes. The officers can present on that issue, let residents know what they've been hearing, what next steps the residents can take. Residents can in turn ask questions, but also they get to cultivate a stronger relationship with those beat cops so they know who they are, they know their names, they know their faces. And I think that's really the sort of community policing that we need to see more throughout Chicago.
Alderman Matt Martin, what are some of those neighborhoods that are in your ward? Like Park Manor?
So
Not Park Manor. What's they call? What's the one? Ravenswood Manor. That's what it is.
So Ravenswood Manor is on the other side of the river in the 33rd Ward. We have Ravenswood Gardens, Lincoln Square, Ravenswood, broadly speaking, North Center, and then some parts of West Lakeview, Roscoe Village, Uptown, and Andersonville.
So Governor Blagojevich's house is not in your ward.
That is correct. He's just across the river.
I'm about to say, I thought he was, but Rahm Emanuel's old house, the mayor Rahm Emanuel, the ex-mayor, he's in your ward, right?
We got some heavy hitters. That's right. So we got Rahm. We've got former Attorney General Lisa Madigan, Forrest Claypool, and then a number of former city officials as well as some state titans too. So John Cullerton, who recently stepped down, he was a long time Senate president. So it attracts some heavy hitters.
Because there are some really nice homes. I'm not saying some homes are nice and others. There's some nice homes, some nice neighborhoods in your ward. And I'm quite impressed. But I read, I didn't even know this. I don't keep up the 47th Ward. The former mayor of Chicago was against your candidacy for alderman.
Well, that's right. But
y'all worked it out. Y'all worked it out.
We're okay. So the person I beat in the runoff was Mayor Emanuel's former chief of policy for a number of years. So I think when you have a close working relationship with someone for that long, especially on issues big and small, you would expect that they would get that you would get their support, and that's what happened with my opponent.
Let me ask you a weird question. I know you have Lakeview High School. And there's some other What
Mm-hmm.
other high schools you have in your ward?
So Lakeview is in the ward. Lane Tech, which is one of the selective enrollment high schools, is also in the ward. Amundsen High School is just outside of the ward, but we send a lot of students there.
So it may not be a problem in your ward, but I've talked to a few people who live on the north side of town, mainly along the lakefront, and they say sounds kind of testy for people on the far south side, maybe west side. There's not enough good schools or not enough good high schools on the north side. Is that a real problem?
So I can speak most fluently about our local high schools, and I think that they're tremendous quality. You have fantastic teachers, fantastic principals, some newer ones at both Lakeview and Amundsen. Amundsen is a 1+ school. I think this is the second year in a row, which is the highest rating that you can get at CPS. Lakeview has consistently been a 1 and is not far behind. Amundsen has a terrific wall-to-wall IB program, International Baccalaureate. Lakeview's emphasis is more of a STEM or a STEAM approach, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So I think we've got 2 really fantastic high schools, public high schools. Lane Tech obviously is a strong one as well, although that's a selective enrollment, so it's not open to everybody. But I think Lakeview and Amundsen, 2 fantastic options that increasingly a lot of folks in and around the 47th Ward are sending their kids to, which I think is tremendous.
And before I ask you my last question for a little tidbit for those 47th Ward residents, as I remember, the movie back in the day in the 80s was called My Bodyguard, and it was filmed, maybe the exteriors at least, were filmed at the Lakeview High School. You know about that?
I
think you weren't. I don't think you were. I don't
that.
think you were born when this movie was out. I mean, it's like you were born early '80s. This got to be early '80s. You were either a little baby, you weren't born. Look it up. My Bodyguard, I think, was filmed. Parts of it were filmed in Lakeview High School, right there. So that's a little tidbit for Chicago. You can look that up. And also, the last question is, when you roll through a ward like the 47th Ward or parts of the north side, especially along the lake, you come to the south side where I live, and further south than I am. There is a lot of income inequality, and a lot of Chicagoans don't have no clue about it. And a lot of Americans don't really understand the income inequality. This is a question beyond your, being an alderman of a ward, the 47th Ward. But how do we really attack the income inequality here in Chicago and across the nation, Matt Martin?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's quite the question to end on. I would say it's intersectional insofar as there's not one issue that I would say we got to focus on. As elected officials, we got to walk and chew gum at the same time, because we need to make sure that all of our local schools are strong, that they're adequately funded. We need to make sure that our stock of housing is affordable, so that you don't have to be a millionaire if you want to own a home, or you don't have to earn 6 figures in order to comfortably rent. From a public safety standpoint, that's significant too. We need to make sure that we have a more collaborative and communicative relationship with our local districts with the public. A final thing I would mention is jobs as well as taxation, how we bring in revenue. So for the jobs piece, we know that we are not seeing the sort of private investment on parts of the south and west side that we see on the north side, and that's got to change. We need to have some more centers of employment, some economic activity, so those locally owned and operated businesses can take that money that they generate and reinvest them back into the community. So I think really revitalizing a number of our retail corridors, which we're starting to do. I was just reading an article earlier this morning about North Lawndale, where they're starting to see some good progress, but we need to turn up the volume on that. And then finally is how we bring in revenue as a city, because when you're talking about affordable housing and education in particular, we don't start to see the sort of transformational change until we start to bring in revenue in a more progressive way. So anyone who's planning to vote in November, which I hope is all of your listeners, fair tax. We need to make sure that we pass that. We are one of the very few states in the country that has a flat state income tax. That's got to change because we can't keep relying on property taxes. We can't keep relying on fines and fees in order to fund our government. That's inequitable. That's going to ensure that the status quo, like racism, that legacy is going to persist. So in order to turn the page and chart a more equitable course, we need to make sure that we're asking folks who have done well currently and historically to kick in a little more. That's what the fair tax will help ensure.
Alderman Matt Martin from the 47th Ward here in the city of Chicago. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you.